Hey everybody, my name is Afefe and this is my second channel I'm launching. I'm known as Touched by Tarot, and this channel I'm launching The Realness, a spiritual take on popular culture, because I am a huge reality TV fan, and so I'm going to do a lot here, not just on reality TV, but popular culture in general. You're going to see posts about politics, sports, etc. But for today's taping and a lot of my tapings, I'm going to cover the Real Housewives franchises, maybe some other reality TV shows, but definitely a primary focus on the Real Housewives. What better show to start than the Real Housewives of Potomac? In its seventh season, crazy, y'all. I know if you watch it, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't watched it, you might as well just take a moment, calm your nerves first, and then dig in, because when I say a spiritual take for the purposes of this channel, it really is an interesting study in human behavior. And for us as women in the Real Housewife franchises, there are, across the racial scope. So this particular cast is majority Black, mixed race, right? Interesting that in its seventh season, what is cropping up is this definite divide between what types of women are on this show. And so the latest episode that happened on Sunday, the November 27th, I'm taping this on Monday morning, the 28th, it was all about Mia. Mia, for those of you who may not know and not familiar with the show, but please do get familiar with the show. Mia, they brought her on, I think it was just last season was her first season, if I'm not mistaken. But she is a former exotic dancer who landed, a successful guy. What her husband does exactly, I'm still not sure. But, they're living a life, okay? But the point I want to raise and look at in this video is, when it comes to women, you all, there are things that, form bonds between us. There are things that we can relate to about one another, and it can help foster a bond. Or there are things that we can focus on that are going to tear us apart. And I think with Mia in particular, with her, the saying comes to mind. You heard, hurt people hurt people. I really think that's a lot of what we see going on with Mia, you all. Mia we know that when she came onto the show, she was very open, and I applaud her for that. She was very open about the fact that she came from, a really tough background. She had a really tough childhood. Her mother apparently has substance abuse, addiction issues, and she even brought her mother on the show. There was a lot of detail in helping us get to know more about her personality, based on the fact that she doesn't have this. She never had this nurturing, mothering sort of energy, in her life, okay? So I think when she got brought into the cast of this show with women who are, accomplished, with women who have had, very, for instance, Candace, whose parents are both, I think, doctors, if I'm not mistaken. I know her mom is, and I think her father is as well, or was. And so you have people who have come from very, successful backgrounds, people who are college educated, who have taken a certain route to becoming who they are, and therefore getting recognized enough to be casted on this show, right? Mia doesn't fit that mold. And I think Mia is more of someone who has had to sort of scramble her way to the top, or quote unquote to the top. All right. So what we're seeing, I think, is someone who, here they brought her back. And because there were some questions about whether or not Mia was even going to return. She wasn't necessarily received very well in her first season, and her value on the show, and the idea that she doesn't really fit, in this group. So there was questions about whether or not we'd even see her. Well, here she is back again. And man, so far there's a lot of tension and focus being put on her. And to me, she's being given tremendous reign by production to just wreak havoc this season. I'm not so sure that it's even entertaining. in fact, I'm just going to come out and say, to me, it stepped over a line. There's gonna be cattiness. There's gonna be tension. That is what the Real Housewives franchise is really all about. Is, to what extent can you form these real friendships and form some real bonds as women, when in fact you bring women together and you're going to get that little cattiness, you're going to get that tension. Sometimes it does cross a line. Now Mia is off on, to me, she's off on this attention seeking thing, where I put a note here. Remember, her cancer scare was a part of this show, which, Giselle has gone too far with that, in terms of, being very, very biting and caustic about it. I am not enjoying Giselle or Robin so far this season, you all. And I must say, up until now, those have been my girls. Like, I love me some Green Eyed Bandits. I love their friendship. I think their friendship is genuine. Prior to the show even starting, prior to Potomac even being launched, it was clear that Robin and Giselle, they weren't besties, but they clearly knew each other. So on the show, there's a synergy between them. There's a bond between them that feels really natural. But man, the two of them, that's another taping. I'll get into them a little more later in the season, but very disappointed in their behavior this season. I think they're both stretching. I think somebody had a talk with Robin, or maybe Robin had a talk with herself about how to become more visible and quote unquote relevant on the show, because she is going for the gusto with the messiness. Her whole antic with the holding up the camera last show, when the altercation took place between Mia and Dr. Wendy. I think that was way, way over the top. But anyway, going back to Mia, I think she's scrambling for attention. I think to some extent, she has been a little too open on the show. She brought her mother out, dealing with her addiction and substance abuse issues, and the fact that she was not mothered. And now, so we felt, we were supposed to feel a certain way about her based on that, understanding that she didn't have that growing up. Now there's been the cancer scare that she's been really sketchy about. There's some questions about the extent to which that may or may not even be true. We don't know. And let me say, before I go any further, this whole channel is for entertainment purposes only. I don't pretend to be an expert in anybody's life. I don't know these people personally. And so I'm not, I'm just sharing my opinion. All right. She's talked about, the whole idea that the way she got with her husband was, she was this super freak. And not only was she an exotic dancer, but she openly said, she talks about them having sex on the beach in Miami in full view of whomever, and she had absolutely no problem with it. I think we're going to be seeing some more about Mia's sexual escapades. There was even some stuff thrown out on the table in this week's episode about, potentially what she and her husband are doing, with other couples, perhaps other women, other men, who knows. But these are the kind of topics that are being thrown out, and it's interesting to see the extent to which Mia is willing to put her, on the one hand, put herself out there and say, yeah, I'm this super freak. I do this, I do that. I have no problems with it. Nobody's going to shame me about that. Cool, all about it. But walking a fine line between saying, on the one hand, that's who you are, but there's this saying, read the room. And is this the group of women? Especially, we saw the tension that happened between her and Karen in last night's episode, where she wanted Karen to pick a side. And Karen was like, I see wrong on both ends. Karen's role as the oldest cast member is very much about being a mediator between, these episodes that break out among the women. She's the voice of reason. She's the elder. She's the grande dame, and so she tries to keep it classy at all times. Mia, on the other hand, is saying, I know how to be wretched, and I will be that and own it and just take it to the limit. And then at the same time, you want someone like Karen to champion you. It's not going to happen, Mia. You got to learn how to read the room. You need to look around the table and assess who these women are and be who you are. you're cast for a reason. It's not about trying to copycat any of them, but also understand the extent to which you can or maybe cannot form bonds with these women based on what it is that you are bringing to the table. It is very different than what the others are bringing to the table. All right, so that's something I wanted to share about Mia, and what I think is this tension, this notion of storylines that are meant to tear apart versus form some sort of bonds with the women. The second thing, though, and I really, really enjoyed this aspect of last night's show, you all. I'm going to call it trauma bonding between Wendy and Candace, all right? When they went to the studio and hung out with Trina, who just love now. God, I wish they could bring her on as a castmate. All right, because Trina is all about building, building women up, and this is what she's done for Candace in agreeing to have a guest spot on her song "Insecure." Now, but let's keep in mind Candace sympathized with what happened to Wendy, and Wendy being attacked by Mia with the glass thrown on her and the purse and the whole nonsense that happened. It was horrible. Candace, it really struck Candace. And Candace would cry at the drop of a hat. You breathe on her and she'd give me a tissue. I got to dab those corners of my eyes. She's a very emotional person. And she got triggered because, when she learned of what happened to Wendy, Mia's attack on Wendy. And granted, Wendy played her part like she always do. Wendy, like Candace, they are very, very mouthy. They know how to cut with that tongue, how to use their words. That's how their primary tool to fight, okay? And they do fight a lot with their words and their speech, all right? Let's not, both of them, all right? So Candace was very moved and got very emotional. She said she was triggered by what happened to Wendy because she didn't like the fact that, it actually got physical, and there's no excuse for that. Now, we know when Monique, for those of you who don't know, it's worth going back a couple of seasons and seeing it because it was quite a thing. There was a former cast member named Monique who really, really, really dogged Candace, like physically, and as a result of that, she was released from the show. It was that bad. It was getting ready to, legal stuff, assault, the whole thing. It was bad, bad, bad. So Candace, being on the receiving end of that beatdown, after she had mouthed off to the point where Monique just lost it, Candace got emotional and was crying about what happened to Wendy. So then we go to this scene where they go to the studio to meet with Trina, and Trina's laid some tracks over Candace's single "Insecure." All right. Very happy for her with that. She is now, Candace is letting us all know, she is now officially an international recording star because she was hired as an actor. I think it's SLS something in Bahamas. I'm sorry, I don't remember the name, but she has been an act for a resort in the Bahamas, and so officially she's been hired. She is now an international recording artist. Wishing her all the best. I think that goes back to, women who sign on to these shows very often use them as a platform for their other professional goals, whether it's merchandising, whether it's a business that they want to open, becoming an entrepreneur, whether it's writing books or whatever. But these platforms are designed to some extent, or even to a great extent, to help them in other aspects of their lives and launch some lines. So I love the fact that they're doing it. Use it to your advantage. It's what we do. It's what it's designed for. So Wendy and Candace go to the studio together, and they have this great moment, this great girlfriend moment where you can see Wendy sitting in the background while Candace is sitting with Trina. And Wendy's like, yes, girl, do your thing. I'm here for it. I'm here to celebrate with you. When they leave, they do the little slink walk, they're just having a good time together. It was a much needed moment for those of us fans who know that the show, yes, these Real Housewives shows are all about the tension and the cattiness and the arguments and the raised voices and all that stuff. It's about being messy and shady and all of that. But it's also about those moments of genuinely supporting one another as women, of being tender, being vulnerable, building bonds with one another. And so again, my point with this recording for this last episode is there are episodes and women whose stories are showing us that, ways that are tearing us apart, and there are moments where we see what bonds us. I do believe that what is bonding Wendy and Candace has a lot to do with the trauma that or the tension and the drama that they've both endured on the show. Candace to a greater extent with what happened with her and Monique, but again, I think that's what really drew her to Wendy. And I don't know what happens off camera. Maybe they really are great friends in ways that we don't see. But I'm just looking at the context of the episode and what we can learn about each other as women. I think when we do relate to one another, Candace could have heard about what happened to Wendy and just been like, been there, done that. I hope she'll be okay. But that wasn't her response to it. Her response was really to gravitate toward Wendy and say, hey, girl, step away from these chicks, for today. And come with me, go see Trina. Let's me and you have a moment. And it was really, really a beautiful moment to me in the context of what was really a tense show. And next week, they set it up. Next week is going to be even, like, season 7 is not letting up, you all. It'll be so interesting to see. They're already saying, Andy Cohen is not going to, he's going to need some help to handle the reunion this year with these ladies, because there's so many things that have happened. And now we see they are setting up some serious drama. I knew when they brought Charisse back that it was going to be problems. I think she should have stayed in whatever hole she went to in her little champagne tower. I watched it from the beginning. I was okay with Charisse. I never thought she was a standout in the cast. When she was let go, she was not missed, in my opinion. But I knew when they brought her back that it was going to mean trouble for Karen, or trying to make trouble for Karen. And I think that's despicable, but we'll see how it plays out. So I want to pull a couple of oracles before I close out, you guys. I want to take an ask from a spiritual perspective. Again, this whole channel is always going to lead back to the greater lessons that we can learn about human behavior, about our relationships to one another, even as we take that celebrity track, even as we do things in the public eye. So I want to take a look at what tears us apart and what bonds us. See what Spirit has to say and lessons that we can learn about that. Well. And boy, did they deliver. Because when I'm looking at Mia, the example that I've used about Mia and how what she's doing is showing ways to tear us apart, I have the ever-changing mother, you all. I'm sorry about that. Excuse my nail polish. I didn't. Come on now. Work with me. Okay, well, take my word for it, y'all. It says the ever-changing mother. This goes back to what we were talking about, Mia, and I think it has a lot to do with her mother issues. I think that her ability to relate to women. I think in particular, even the reaction that she was having to Karen being older. I'm not saying the big 5'9". I'm not saying that Karen is by any means old enough to be Mia's mother, but I am saying I think Mia's 38. So maybe, but technically that may be true, but I'm saying I think that has to do with why she got one of the reasons why she was feeling a certain way toward Karen, not taking up for her, not choosing a side, not coming to her aid more, in her defense more, because Mia's got some mother issues, seriously. And so the ever-changing mother, I think there's hurt people. And I think Mia's got a lot of healing to do, and certainly the Real Housewives may be a really tough form for her to try and accomplish that. Now, when I get to the things that bond us, going back to Wendy and Candace, this episode, we get the throat chakra. I don't know if I can get it on there either. It's just my lighting, you guys. I'm sitting facing a window, so I apologize for that. But it came up the throat chakra, and we just talked about the way that both of them, they are mouth almighty, both of them, Candace and Wendy. But they're sharp. They know how to use their words. They know how to speak their truth. They do not budge. They will not stand down. And so Spirit is actually acknowledging that, you all, that throat chakra. Be aware of how you speak. And even though you can't see the words, you can definitely see that picture there. See how, she is going for it. That is very, Spirit speaking truth to today. That is very much how Wendy and Candace can come across when, you know, neither one of them has a problem expressing, you know, and using their voice. But, you know, in all tribute to them, they are expressing the truth, and they are on a platform that gives them, you know, gives them access and the ability to do it. So, whew, what an episode, you all. Learning about what tears us apart and what binds us, or bounds us. Binding, bounding, what helps us get along. How about that? All right. Take care. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.